Hello again, DJ Joy Scholars. Mr. Koresh back here with you. Like I said, we're going to be jumping into the ancient world. Now, our last little video, we talked about characteristics of leaders. We really identified 8 characteristics of effective leadership. Now, what I have done as playing historian, looked at 8 different leaders of the ancient world. And I've tied a leadership characteristic to why I believe they were so successful at being a leader. Now, as you see, we have all different statues. No photography, but these were some great men that other men and women really carved statues out for them, just representing the greatness of them or as a respect of them. But these men definitely changed the world they live in, led people to greatness and to death, but yet everything you ever wanted from leaders, you can find in the ancient world. So, for example, when I think about justice, I think about this man Hammurabi. When I think about integrity, I think about the man Pericles. The visionary Qin Sheng Huangdi. The man of courage, Ramses II. A man that really promoted diversity was Alexander the Great. A man who was probably known as the most ruthless killer of the world, I'm going to say, became a man of tolerance. He became not Ahsoka the Cruel, but Ahsoka the Great. A man who really harnessed change, created change, and really changed the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar. And then a very wise man, Chinese philosophy man. That would actually be Confucius, who really represents the characteristics of wisdom. But right now, I'm going to actually jump into really explaining and teaching all about this guy, Hammurabi and justice. But all of these characteristics really hover around this idea of power. Men and women in leadership positions have power. Now, first thing I would like you to do is go ahead and think about the word power. If you were writing the dictionary, if you were Mr. Webster and you came to the P section and you wrote the word power, what would your definition of power be? Think about it. Hit pause if you need to think more, because I'm going to tell you what Mr. Webster said. Mr. Webster said, power is the ability to act or produce an effect. Now, bring that to being a powerful leader, you have to break that down like this. Power is control. Power is the ability to affect others and control yourself. Control yourself so you can actually control others. Now, how you choose to control people really determines what type of leader you want to be. You could be a dictator. You could be more of a like a fatherly figure, like a big daddy type of guy who actually looks out for the peace and well-being of his people. Or you can be about power and more money and actually getting more money for you and the people you know. But power can be used many different ways. Leaders can either lead for the good, for the many, for the few, but power is at the essence of being a leader. But how does one control themselves? Start with emotional regulation. How does one control others? Maybe threats, promises, support, honesty? I don't know. But these are questions you have to ask yourself about power and leadership. How does one control the many? I think about that a lot in this world. How can the minority, the few, control the many? Now, we see this a lot within facility. There's only 1 or 2 YSSs on your unit. But your unit consists of maybe 10, maybe 15 young men or women. Yet that's a perfect example of how the one controls the many. Now think about your facility. There's program norms, there's major rule violations, there's daily achievement system, there's all these things that are in place that allows the few to control the many. But how do many control one? Right? How does, can you use brute force? 12 guys getting 1 guy to do something. That's one way to do it. Forced action. Another way you could do it is actually, how can many control one? Promises. The idea, if you follow us, you might be better off. But these are questions that people ask themselves if they want to gain power and be a leader. Now, our justice, one element of being a leader is being just. So my question to you is, what is justice? Now, the last video we talked about justice being treating people fairly, reasonable laws. I recommend going back into your notes and seeing that the ideas that go around the word justice. But here's our man Hammurabi, and you see the dates. You see the dates that it's 1792 to 1750 BC. Now notice, these dates are not going up like our years today. Like it's 2024. Next year, 2025. Teachable moment, they're actually counting down because it's us looking back in time. They're counting down towards the birth of Christ. The birth of Christ is used by many historians as a tool to tell time, a placeholder. Life before the birth of Jesus and life after Jesus. But it gives us a time frame to understand when and where this stuff happens. Some civilizations use other time markers, but many historians these days use the birth of Christ as that place marker about things that happened before that and things that happened after. So anytime you see BC, you're actually counting down towards 0. AD, you're actually counting how we count today. We're now 2024 years since the birth of Christ. But here is the statue, a stele of Hammurabi getting the laws. Now Hammurabi was very famous about his laws, even creating a set code. I believe there's 282 different laws that he created to what he would like to say to provide protections of the weak, to provide justice. But here, what you would see in the middle of your town would be a stele. And that stele would have a picture of Hammurabi, of course, and of course a picture of Anu, which I believe that's what they called their god. Now, so the perception is, the piece of propaganda is that Hammurabi got these laws from the divine, from the gods. So therefore, if you're messing with Hammurabi, you're messing with the gods. One more reason to respect him and follow him, but also shows the power and might of him. God sent me. You're going to disrespect Hammurabi? You're going to disrespect the gods? Many leaders do that throughout history. Use the power of God to legitimize their own power. Now, your location is Mesopotamia. Now, Mesopotamia really means the land between two rivers. So, Hammurabi is a man of justice. He's founding a city called Babylon, and even controlling this whole area, which we might call, Mesopotamia. But Babylon is the capital, and this is where you would start putting up his codes of Hammurabi. Now, some key details from this map is this idea called the Fertile Crescent. Very famous place in history, because this is when we start seeing our first cities, our first forms of writing, the first, established agriculture where they produce so much food, hunting and gathering kind of went away, where they could produce food, farm it, harvest it, and every season you would have enough food to feed their people. This allowed the people to think about other things, like laws to protect the weak, like new technologies to make life easy. But once you meet that need of feeding the people have more free time to do other things besides worrying about their needs. They can do what they want to do, not what they need to do. But the Fertile Crescent is this phrase, really thinking about the area between Egypt, going all the way down, all the way through what we call present-day Middle East. And it is really the land, Mesopotamia really takes a lot of this land up, the land of the Fertile Crescent. But this is where we consider the cradle of civilization, the birthplace of civilization, the place where people started to really act like how we act today, modern humans. Cities, technology, government, religion, all is going to be developed because of the formation of agriculture and these ideas that even start with Hammurabi in the Middle East. Now, some geography for you. Way off topic, but yet you got to know your geography. So all throughout my lessons, I always throw contemporary maps, maps of the world today, because you got to know this world and where we are, where you are on this map, and where this guy Hammurabi in this place called Mesopotamia, and Sumer, Babylonia, where are we talking about? So overall, what nations would make up present-day Mesopotamia? Now remember, it's a little different map, but the Fertile Crescent went from the Persian Gulf up through Iraq, through Syria, through Jordan, maybe even touched upon Egypt. But that's what we're talking about today. Mesopotamia is in the Middle East, pretty much present-day Iraq, between two rivers known as the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. Some geography for you. Whoops, I clicked it, all ready to go. But yet, know your map skills, always know what part of the world we're talking about, and try to connect that to present-day nations so you know about the world we live in and where all this stuff went down. Now, the achievement. Hammurabi's big achievement is this code. Like I said already, Hammurabi's code is written, carved out on these stelas. Now, these stelas or steles would actually be placed in all the towns that Hammurabi conquered. Let the people know what is expected of them. Now, if you zoom in on this, you're going to find 282 laws. Laws that Hammurabi believed were just. Hammurabi's code, his achievement, was established in Mesopotamia, to be more precise, Babylonia, but yet it's a set of 282 laws. We'll zoom in on it. But the power of writing. The first forms of writing were used. The first forms of writing was actually written on clay. Clay impressions. They would use little sticks to make impressions in the clay to represent wedge-shaped writing. This is known as cuneiform writing, the first form of writing known to us, right? The idea that it was done in clay. The interpretation of this is, and most historians argue, it's them documenting what they harvested. They're really contracts. They're finding out ways to write down the contract for how much grain I sold you and how much grain how much money or how much currency you would give me. Documenting trade, money. Money's been important for people for a long time. As we see, the first forms of writing were used to document business transactions, and then gave way to the idea of actually writing laws down so everyone knows the law. But look at this. Here's a little chart really showing the development of writing. We assume writing would develop like this. So it goes, the earliest writings are on top. You know, arguing pictographs, where the picture of like the fish looks like a fish. And you write down the fish and you make a little picture of the fish. But the progress of this actually going and turning into cuneiform writing down here, it takes 1,000 plus 2,000 years. But the idea that pictographs, little pictures, became symbols, which is that cuneiform writing down here, which looks like this, is the development of the written word. Now, if you want, you can pause right here, write your name in cuneiform writing. Not easy to do. Understand that only the select few, the nobles and the men, were only allowed to write, even to learn to write. And they would all go to a place like a tablet house, where the rich kids, the noble kids, the males would be able to document, be able to read, learn to read and write, to document laws, business transactions, and all of this is the reason why that if you could read and write, you were in a place of power. But cuneiform writing even found evidence of math. Looks like geometry if you zoom in on this, right? You got angles going on. Think of math class, but on clay tablets. Even the numbers, right? You can write your age in cuneiform writings. But this cuneiform is the example of the first forms of writing that humans know about. And it was developed by Hammurabi and the Sumerians in Mesopotamia over 2,500 years ago. Now, talking about justice served. Hammurabi's big on justice. So the idea that the weak will be protected by the powerful. And Hammurabi is a powerful man. So he created these laws to protect those who might not be as powerful. So if a man, so you would see on these steelers all the laws written down. If a free man brings false testimony in a case that carries the death penalty, you ever hear about the idea of eye for an eye? This is where it comes from. A tooth for a tooth. Meaning, if I poke your eye out, my punishment is I lose my eye. So think about it here. If you're lying about something and that leads to their death, Hammurabi does not play. Hammurabi is going to simply say, you should be put to death. You lied and that man was put to death. Your lie deserves the death penalty. Eye for an eye. It's harsh, but yet he believes the person being lied about is in a state of weakness and they must be protected. Makes sense. Kind of prevents, it's like a deterrent, right? You better not be lying. You get caught lying, there's severe consequences. So if a free man wants to disinherit his son, but the judges find that his son has done no grave wrong, who's the weak? The son, right? So you would assume this law protects the son, the baby, the boy. And it does, right? Simple law that guess what? The father may not disinherit his son. Makes sense. You make a baby, you are legally bound to that baby, and you must take care of it. The law protects the weak from the strong. Keep it going? Well, here we go. Can you build your own house? Most of us can't. So we need homeowner protections. So if a builder builds a house and does not make the construction firm and the house collapse and causes the death of the owner, you know it's coming. Guess what? No bad carpenters. The builder shall be put to death. Right? In a bad situation, I can't build my house. I hire someone to build my house. Crappy house is built. Crappy house falls on you. You die. Hammurabi is going to put that carpenter to death. Quality control is important. So, once again, if a fire has broken out in a man's house and one who has come to put out his covenanted, to put it out, has covenanted the property, covenanted, to take, to steal the property of that householder and appropriated any of it, meaning you go to help someone put out their fire in the house and you don't help put out the fire, you actually take their stuff. Hammurabi doesn't appreciate this. That man shall be cast into that same fire. Right? Harsh. But yet, the belief that kind of the punishment fits the crime. Like, you're stealing the man's stuff during the fire. He's in a time of weakness. So you're going to burn just like the stuff you're trying to steal. Punishment fits the crime. Now, if a trader borrows money from a merchant and then denies it, and the merchant can prove this loan was made, the trader shall pay the merchant 3 times. No one's dying here. Hammurabi gets crazy like that sometimes. No one's dying, but yet this harsh consequence. You refuse to pay back? All right, you're paying back 3 times the amount. Making sure that those who put themselves out to helping others giving loans will be paid back. Now, so how did Hammurabi's code provide justice for ancient Babylon? Simply put, the punishment fits the crime. All right, so overall, that's my little video segment on Hammurabi, justice, and how Hammurabi used justice to maintain power. Thank you. Next up, courage.